Let's take you back to one of our main stories today. The government now says it wants to educate young people over how to spot what the Education Secretary has called putrid conspiracy theories. Joining me now to discuss more on this is Adam Hadley, the founder and executive director of Tech Against Terrorism. Adam, very good to talk to you. And how do you think we can practically teach children to have the critical skills to work out what they are reading online, whether or not it's true, when clearly lots of adults don't have those skills?
Well, that's a very good point. Certainly in terms of supporting the younger generations in interpreting news and information, the news today can only be a good thing. What we'd say is that encouraging young people to look at the sources of information and how credible that is, and then also evaluate the, just how realistic is this material? Does it make sense? Is it exaggerated or emotive? So it's a great initiative and an important one. It's also crucial because so many extremists and terrorist narratives often rely on exaggerated threats and concerns and they'll exploit many grievances. So the more we're able to critically analyse what we're seeing in the news and on social media, the better.
We've seen a number of people in court, a number of adults in court for posting disinformation on social media. As journalists, we're of course trained in the laws of defamation and libel. It seems that a lot of other people don't understand those laws and think that they can just write anything they want and publish it. Do we need training for adults too? Does the general population need this kind of training, do you think?
Well, I think there's a broader point that's been made over the past week by the government that hate speech and racism and incitement to violence is illegal and criminal wherever it takes place. Certainly over the past decade, there's been this idea, hasn't there, that people can say anything they like on the internet. And restating the fact that hate crimes are hate crimes anywhere is surely a good thing, and hopefully a wake-up call to those people in society who've been able to share hateful speech online for years with impunity.
The psychology behind it is fascinating, isn't it? And you were talking about the kind of things that people will base their tweets on and their posts on, and whether it's something that's very, very emotive. Those who are angry or agitated tend to share more, don't they?
That's right. The psychology of content sharing is really interesting. Unfortunately, I guess it's human nature that we naturally respond to content that's quite emotional, potentially angry, and so on and so forth. So unless we're careful, it's quite easy to unwittingly amplify this material. I would say that social media platforms surely have a responsibility to build their systems with safety in mind. They have a duty of care to their users. And there's a kind of conflict of interest in some cases because social media makes most of its money from advertising, of course, and advertising revenue generated by clicks and views. So unfortunately, there are some circumstances in which social media can actually be accelerating the polarization of content online and profiting from it. So it's really great that the Online Safety Act, which has been brought in, will eventually be looking at many of these issues. But I think putting the blame on the population isn't entirely appropriate. Social media also has a responsibility to ensure that they're encouraging users to share positive content and nudging them away from toxic material.
But how easy is it for them to clamp down on that? Because, if it's something like language, if there are swear words or images, it is possible, I understand that, they can block those in a relatively straightforward fashion. But if someone is saying something that perhaps doesn't include swear words, but is just factually incorrect, how on earth can the social media companies stop those things going out and being disseminated and repeated?
Well, there are a number of ways that social media can do this. AI, of course, is really powerful. And with generative AI, the technology behind ChatGPT, it's now much easier to do some really sophisticated analysis of content. I'd say it's not just about I suppose, steering people away from content itself, but also reminding users, before they reshare, have they read it? What's the credibility of the news source? Is it high? Is it low? So you can furnish users with information and insights into the material that's being shared without stopping them sharing things. But with AI, it's also possible to kind of see, what's the sentiment of that material? Is it pleasant? Is it unpleasant? So it certainly is possible if social media platforms wanted to do this, they could.
How about teaching the children this? Because I suppose they are this generation that has grown up being so dependent, so many of them on their smartphones. They believe what they see their friends are posting on. I think we are arming our children with enough skills, aside from the social media, in order to question these things.
Well, certainly with the announcement today, we'll be hopefully reinforcing the fact that it's important to look at media and internet content with a critical lens. There's an irony here, of course, that most research shows, and I think you alluded to this in your opening comments, that it's actually the older generations that are most likely to share mis and disinformation. So perhaps by reinforcing these critical reasoning skills with the younger generations, they'll be able to teach their parents and grandparents about what should and shouldn't be shared.
Well, there's some hope there at least. Adam Hadley, a founder and executive director of Techs Against Terrorism. Very interesting to talk to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.